Welcome everyone. This session is being recorded. It's a follow-up to our client success series. It's the episode 2. It's the keynote, so we're going to showing off the out-of-the-box functionality of business development. So it's a deep dive on business development. So I went pretty fast last week. You might have listened me back to 0.5 speed on YouTube. But this week we're going to take our time and we're going to dig a bit deeper in the functionality. That's why I have with me Dominic. Dominic, as for those of you that don't know him, Dominic is part of the Drakia team. Drakia is our implementation partner at Klient, our prime implementation partner. Dominic has been with Drakia since pretty much the beginning of the partnership with Crow at the time and now Klient. So he has done many roles within the business, but now is responsible to do a relationship with you guys, our customers. So he's our growth director at Drakia.
Greetings to everyone from snowy Canada.
Yeah, we have snow today.
We have snow. It's nice.
At least we can do something outside. The goal, it's really to go deeper a little bit into the functionality, and I think Dominic, because Dominic has implemented more than 30 something project with our customer base on the client side, on Crow side. So the idea of Drakia, they know inside out the professional service industry. That's the only thing they do. So they see a lot of use cases. So having the discussion with Dominic, it's going to help me go deeper. Dominic is knowledgeable on the platform. So those keynotes, that's the idea. Dominic and I are going to drive those. We see it as our roadshow. So for the next weeks, months, so we're going to be doing those every week. The keynote format, I'll try the Zoom survey in a few seconds. I thought I could add survey on live on the spot, but it seems that I cannot, so I need to pre-package those questions. So I only have one survey with 3 or 4 questions today. This being said, I might be more prepared next week. We're going to do a quick process review about business development. So the modules this week is business development. After that, Dominic is going to jump in and he's going to do a kind of a coaching training session discussion with me and with you guys. So the idea is that you go ahead and ask questions. So you should all be able to do Q&A. You can raise your hand. I can promote you to panelists if you want to share your screen. Or share your camera. And the idea throughout that discussion is that we can also talk about our roadmap and where we want to go with the functionality on business development. Okay, so business development is the first of our modules. So it's everything related to trying to close a deal, a service deal. And we've tried to represent it as clearly as possible with as not too many details. So we can see it this way. You have a sales opportunity, your sales team has a sales opportunity. We find one in Salesforce. Usually the object we will use would be leads. It would be the account and contact for sure. And at some point, we most probably will create that sales cloud opportunity. Maybe a lot of you guys, or maybe, and I think it's part of one of my questions, is you might not be using opportunity at all. For those of you who has sales cloud, you can track opportunity. And for those working, the sales guys, they usually works with notes and with the email integration. When it's turning out to be the sales coming closer and the sales guy want a more precise estimate, quite often our customer want to be able to easily scope project. And for us, the way to do that is to use proposal. We saw that quickly the other day. So proposal works with client projects with the templates to create them. But one of the key objects is the project assignment. Those are the roll-up. Project assignment is an object where you have the role, you have the rate, and you have dates for the entire project for one specific resource. So this is how we carry the rate back to the proposal. So that's the link between the proposal and the project. It's through the project assignment. When you want to quote or use proposal with task, you can also use task assignment, and Dominic will show us later. There's a checkbox so the task assignment are linked to project assignment or are in sync with project assignment, meaning that those can then come back to the proposal again. So you have that same number. Again, other object, project role, and rate card. I don't want to go deep. It's better when Dominic's going to show his screen. But the object or the tools we were going to use, so the import from template, the Gantt chart, the resource planner to see if we can really support those roles. Statement of work and document generation, we're going to briefly talk about it. We don't have anything out of the box, but because the way we're structured, it's easy for you to use other services. So this is where we're going to play today. Usually when you're able to do that and collaborate well with your sales team, then it would go back to the opportunity for closing, and you get maybe that e-signature for that opportunity or that statement of work, the PDF. And after that, this is where the operation team would be notified and go and finalize all the prep step before launching the project. Dominic, did I miss anything? That's a good.
Nope,
Okay.
doing pretty good.
Okay, so this we saw the other day is the same question. So are you doing project forecasting? So if we want to use the use of proposal is for that, to be able to forecast your future project and to help estimate your project, so you can have easily have a statement of work for project resource and rate and role. So that's where you can also forecast the future. The functionality we have now, we use account and contact, but you can see the proposal kind of as the statement of work for the opportunity. Maybe, and maybe I'm gonna send the poll right away. Lunch polling. So you have 3 questions. So the question is first, the first one I didn't want to remove it. It was for last week, but I didn't use it. So we've talked about all modules. Which one is more important for you guys? Second question is, are you using opportunity, proposal, Salesforce CPQ? And I was wondering about the pace. So maybe the pace, I'm thinking it was too fast, but maybe you guys, you were okay. And I should have asked Ilan to check my typos or my mistake. Maybe there's some there. Okay. So there's still votes being registered, so I'll wait a little bit. But to come back on the slide, so now we can see on the right side, you have the functionality offered by our business development module. So we've talked about it, and I think where we're going to improve is really on the proposal object and the proposal line, the link with the opportunity, and I think some adjustment on the Gantt is going to help the process too. So this we can talk, but I think we have something good in our hands. Okay, the benefits, it's really to create that unity. Quite often, this is one of the main goal of Klient and Drakia, to put together a link between all departments. So we have that unity and collaboration between all departments, in this case in sales and operation. When your sales team are aware of what's coming and the peak and valley, it's helping everyone forecast for the future. Yeah. At this point, I'm going to turn to you, Dominic, and I'm going to look at the Q&A. I'm going to post the result of the poll in a few seconds as well.
You want to stop sharing so I can start?
There you go.
Marvelous. Excellent. So as I said, greetings everyone. Good to be here and to talk about that. As Yannick said, any questions along the way, we want to make it flexible so that we can maybe adjust our presentation. So basically, it's where we're starting now. This kind of small journey here, we're kind of using similar to story of what Yannick did last week, as far as getting an opportunity spec'd and priced. So that's where I'm starting here. It's not a demo necessarily on opportunity itself, but it's part of that sales process. And probably most of you would have opportunity. So this is kind of our launch pad here still. So one of my go-to views here in the morning, or pretty much as often as possible, keep track of what I need to do, could be a list view. So the opportunity or my opportunities that I need to track, so everything that is open and need to be tackled. So I keep a good eye on what needs to be done and prioritize my day based on that. So this is here all my opportunities that are due. What you'd like to want to make sure that you're managing those close dates, keeping track of that, because there's a lot that is kind of trailing or based on close dates. And the next step also is a good kind of teaser, brain teaser, just to keep track of where you're at and what needs to be done. So from here, I'll jump on just an account, because for every one of you, even if you don't have opportunities, you'd have the account page, which then should be kind of your kingdom of the customer. So everything here related to the customer should be there. That gives you a good big picture of what's happening with this customer. And if you want to take a snapshot, do an assessment of how everything's doing before you do a call to a customer, this would be your go-to page. So here we have a few things. Obviously, we have the details that we probably are already aware, but what we would have here is the related list, so that we get the health of the account, where you see obviously all the contacts, but what we have down here are all the related stuff that is pertaining to projects. So we have obviously opportunities that we've talked. We have the proposal that might be linked to those. So project evaluation, that might mean project in the pipelines, all the projects by stages. We see that we have in this case here a few projects in pipeline, and also at the very bottom here, which is always good, money thing. So money talks here, we have the status of all the invoices. So if you're to call a customer, it might be a good thing if there's any invoices that are pending. So we have that visibility across the board for the account executive, account managers that need to have that information here. And obviously everything that is standard across the board for Salesforce, all the activities that we've talked, the chatter, and also the other thing which is interesting, the notes, so that you can have notes that are related to each account for many reasons.
And the notes, I think Dominic can just open it up for a second. The notes, for me, this has pretty much changed the way I've been keeping track of everything. So before, your life needs to be in Salesforce. When you're in the ecosystem, that's the idea. You need to put everything in Salesforce. But that note, because it's auto save, and because you can relate it to multiple objects, not only to one, it's kind of a lifesaver. So every time I'm having a new project or a new account or a new contact or a new, I'm creating a new note, and then I'm gonna add link to it. So we can talk about notes longer. But yeah, if you guys don't have it on your page, there's a couple of steps to add it, but you should definitely use it. It's one of the best tools Salesforce can add.
And as as Yannick mentioned, add to records here, we can link that, so we could have those notes follow through and share, across the process. So maybe it's an account note at the beginning, and then it maybe become something that we want to share into meetings or to other team members on the project. We can even link that to the different records there. So very useful. And the autosave is a saver. So instead of taking notes in a meeting in a record, taking notes in notes, basically it also saves. So you're not, if something crashes, you keep what
Uh,
you've
I
been
didn't
working
want
on.
to talk about it, but bottom left, the note. This way, you always have it at 2 click to create a new note, or most probably the top 10 is the one that you've been working on at the past month, or you can just create new, and then yeah, again, it's 2 click to create a new note. So it's really useful.
Yeah, these new action items at the bottom left is something that is very useful. So I do have the chatter also, which is quick access to chatter. So basically on this one here, the concept is that for this customer, it's a new customer. So it's a net new customer that we are to do a proposal. So we have a proposal that is open at this point for him, for this customer. So it's really needs analysis. So this is where we'll jump to. Having access to this, we see that based on the next activities that I had to do and next steps, I need to build a project plan and budget. So, that was part of my list, so I can jump right into it. And from here, if you do have opportunities, you can also have proposal that is linked to that. So directly from here, we can either ask for someone in operations to build that. Or if it's your smaller team and you're kind of managing wider, you could go still right from here and generate that. So in this case here, just for the use case, I'm going to do it right from here. So what I'm going to do is, as I've hit new, I'm getting that new proposal that is directly automatically linked to that opportunity as I've launched off from that one. And then I can just get my account linked. And that's basically what I need to do at this point. The proposal really, it's kind of Yannick touched based on that in the initial slides. Really, I see it as the missing link. there's sales and there's operations, and somewhere in between you need to share that information, get something, several proposals, several variations of a project. But that's kind of the missing link that gets information from projects all the way to sales number, dollar signs, and kind of key information, so that you don't get overwhelmed with maybe a big project plan. So having this from here, the other thing also we mentioned last week and in the slides is that using templates is very useful. We can leverage on lessons learned from past experience and other projects. We could even use eventually ongoing projects that to kind of spin it into a new, we've done something that works very well with customer, we want to spin it for another one. We could even leverage those existing projects into either templates or even build a proposal based on that. So from here, and we're kind of doing the same step we did last week, but just taking a bit more time to make sure that you guys understand. So from here, what we can do is we can import a project directly from a template. So we don't necessarily need to go into projects, create one, and then do all those steps. We have a few step savers here with this feature, so that what we can do is just look for that template. So I'm going to select here the quick start foundation, and I'm going to get that tiny checkbox in the bottom that makes a whole difference. What it's going to do, it's going to create that project, duplicate the tasks, duplicate the assignments, the estimated hours, everything that comes along with the project, even the checklist that we may have. So stuff that we are waiting, we need to do in order to complete a task, that gets all copied over into a new project that we can now customize and tweak so that we have that quick proposal that is built.
You did a good job of covering up that loading. Uh, there's there's still people that didn't vote, so I'm going to end the polling soon. So if you want to look on your the panel, you should see a poll button. If you press on it, I think we're 58% of you guys have voted. So yeah, it would be nice if a little bit more of you voted. Thank you, Dominic.
So basically now we have that project that is being created. We saw that we had new proposal lines, and what Yannick talked earlier is about there's different levels of scheduled hours. I don't we'll get into that when we get to scheduling and forecasting. But basically what we're looking into when we get the proposal is we're looking at the planned hours. So all the hours that are summed up for each project assignments. So that means a resource with a certain role. Then all those hours are kind of rolled up and then brought over to the proposal. So that's what we see here. So we have a total number of hours for each of those resources, and we could even have different resources that would play different roles in the project, and that would be considered. And then that will consider the project rate cards and all the rates that we are that will be assigned to each of those project assignments. So that got brought over. So we have quickly, if there's nothing to do already, we have a price there. So if it's really just a bucket of hours we want to have based on a standard process or standard products we're quoting from, then we already have our quote. In a sense, we have our expected revenue, we have a detail of what it comprised of, and then we could be good to go. But maybe in this case, we have some stuff that we want to modify. Maybe there's a special request. There's something that we need to kind of customize. So 80% is the standard, but we have that 20% that can kind of show our customer that we're flexible here. So just loading the Gantt, I'm still in the proposal. So I just loaded the Gantt. What I'm doing is a quick reschedule. So in that case here, based on all the dependencies that I have in my project, everything got resynced and recalculated based on the date, starting from where I'm at right now, which is as of today. So obviously we can adjust. So let's say we were to, and let's put that into a week view. We were to say, okay, this is expected to be signed. It's a quick project. We can just drag and drop the dates, and then the whole project kind of moved over because we had a good template with, the dependencies that make sense.
I see. I'm sure some people saying, yeah, it's because they're all linked together, but it's not always the case. So yeah, we understand that. We're thinking of maybe it might be a solution, and maybe this is something that you guys can chat in the chat, is to be able to move an entire project relatively to a number of days, so all tasks to be moved at the same time. Would that be something of interest? At this point, if there's no link between tasks, then no, there's no way you can just realign. Th- This being said, this worked well when the project has not started yet. But as soon as you started logging some hours, because the assignment, the task assignment schedule and everything are linked to that task, moving those will change the pattern of assignment too. So there would be some constraint for that. But for sales project, we're talking about it yesterday, Dominic and I, might be of interest.
There's one thing that exists, and not necessarily going there, but when you define a template, you can have relative days, so that you could have different tasks without them being linked. At least from a starting point, when you load a new project from a starting date, you could have tasks that have, let's say, 20-day relative date. So based on a start date, that task would only start 20 days after. So there's a few concepts. Then after, yes, when you get into moving dynamically a project that exists, then those linked are kind of lost. But at least there's a few options if you're not fully linked in between tasks, so that when you first load it, you could still use relative days. I could look into that when we get to the planning and scheduling thing. So from here, what I wanted to do is that, maybe we have a customer that asks for some custom stuff that we need to bundle up with this out of the box project. So what I'm going to do is, from here directly, we could quickly add new task and scope further. And maybe we have a special workshop here, whatever we call it, so that we have some requirements that are out of scope from our foundation or quick start project, but we can still add that quickly in. And when we can go either here and fill some information already, or as we have here, which is still available as we have in the project, we can configure all our columns here and get estimated hours or maybe milestone payments and that type of thing. So we can directly configure without even having to go to the project itself. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put some estimated hours here. Let's say 8 hours here. And the other thing I wanted to maybe update is maybe we have a prepayment, as we talked last week, something that we could just put that ad hoc as something that we want to cover or invoice quickly. So this is here directly, it's live data. So we then quickly update, I get my whole project, and then I'm almost good to go and update my proposal if need be. Another thing that is interesting, and I think it's not necessarily just in operation, we have here a button that's called baseline. So we can take a snapshot of our project at any point in time. That can grab, when we're in operation, that grabs a lot more. We get actual hours, logged hours, and few things that are live data that in operations we might get. But even for here, in this case, we might grab a baseline to say this is as proposed to the customer, and then if ever he comes back and have some validation or change in lead times and the layout and time, then we can track that also. So that's something that we can still use even in proposal. It's not very complicated. Now it just took a snapshot, made a copy or of some information from each of those tasks, and then eventually, as we move it in time, then we could even compare with the baseline here and toggle that baseline. So as we move stuff there, we'd be able to compare. And then the other thing, we still can do that is to export, which is very useful there. If you want to use that in your statement of work, obviously we can export a PNG or a PDF and then integrate that. So that still is useful. I think it went fast last time, but it's a good trick there that we can directly here use that Gantt chart and then drag and drop directly into our files there, so that we can reuse that either here or even our statement of work eventually.
Question, Dominic.
Yes.
Something about the project Gantt and holidays, and I'm guessing it's scheduling. It's coming, but a bit more about scheduling. So, but would it become showing calendars or show? Um, I think the Gantt is more kind of a high level planning. It's not. Can you get in detail into this?
Yes, everything that is PTO holidays, what we would need, where we would consider that is when we get to resource planning. So that would show whenever we're to select a resource. And that's a good, we could segue right there, because that's basically where I was going, to kind of show maybe I have some resource that are important or scarce, and I want to make sure that I have that. What I could do is go to the resource planner. So I'm going to do just that, but we wouldn't see it necessarily in the Gantt because it's really overall. At this
I
point, Gantt
guess
is
it's
really on the
gonna,
project.
after you've done the planning, then it's gonna readjust again depending on the holidays and the workload that
Yes,
you
it
assign
could,
to your
depending on
resource.
how the different tasks are. If you're based on effort based on those tasks, yes, they could in different setups. They could even adjust based on the actual availability of a resource. So it depends on the setup of the project.
I find sometime as well, it's just a question maybe of showing out kind of another filter either on top at the bottom, or so maybe there's, we could show as well like what is the holiday calendar, because you might have four, five, six holiday calendar depending on how many states, country you're dealing with. So maybe just showing with the block, so at a separate layer or at the resource level. So yeah, there might be
It's
something
a good
on in that
idea. That
regard.
could be a good improvement idea. Yeah, sure. Got another layer of information that would be used to take good decisions without making it too complicated if it's just something that you can ignite or not, depending on. Um, so yeah, so just to get there, let's say in my concept here, I'm either later down a process of getting customers interested. We want to make sure that if we're kind of promising a date, that we will have resource available for that, and maybe it's a specific resource. You have a superstar, and customers wants to have that superstar absolutely. So maybe even if we're not still in we didn't maybe not didn't have win the project yet, but still we want to make sure that still is useful. We have, as we've seen, that project was created as a pipeline, and we'll see that it's useful elsewhere here. We can use those status to kind of segregate or segment the information based on that. But from my project, I do have access to the resource plan. So here, what I want to do is to make sure, do I have an engagement lead that would be able to do the job based on the dates that the customer may have requested. So clicking here, I'm gonna look into the different resource. I'm not, it would be a similar process if we were to book it, but maybe you just want to make sure that what you're promising you can deliver. So that would be a good point where we could say, and in here, the availability would be affected by holidays and PTOs. So if you're on holiday for the whole week, then you wouldn't have any availabilities. It would consider that in here. So that's the segue with the question I wanted to make. So here you see the actual engagement for this role, number of hours spread across the different weeks based on your Gantt. And if you update your Gantt, obviously this would update also automatically. So that's the interesting connection part in between your scheduling and your actual project. Um, and from here, maybe the other filters that we're not necessarily always looking into is maybe I want to consider, because those resources may be on pipeline projects. They're soft book, they're not necessarily actually working on something. So you could have some consideration and say, here, if I uncheck this, I'm not going to consider any hours that are into pipeline. And you see now Bill Bob here, he was not as available as now, but now he kind of got freed up, because that means that he's engaged on, or he's placed on projects that are pipeline. So that usually would try to use as much as possible placeholders, but in some cases you might have a specific resource that only one can do it. You don't need to have a placeholder. You want to have that one so that even the pipelines could be considered, but they could be considered as pipeline or softbook. So that can also be adjusted in our resource planner here. So I do see it. I have some availabilities. I kind of confirm, yeah, okay, Bill Bob is good. We have room for him. I'm good to go. I can commit to the customer that we can deliver in the time that he's asking for. So from here, I could kind of having that confirmed, I could go back to my proposal and have that marked as complete. And as we see here, the other thing I wanted to mention is that you could have based on that residing into Salesforce. Salesforce has these approval processes that we can use, and even from proposal, if you were to have some process of approving some, have someone that is building the project, but you want to get that through a validation gate, you have access to those approval process even in the at the proposal stage also. So in this case, let's to make it clean. Let's say that this is now submitted. We have it back to our sales person, sales account manager that asked for that price. The information is available for them so that we can get back to the opportunity, complete the SOW, and then get it going and win that job. Anything you want to add on that, Yannick?
No, I think we're good. I'll just share the results of the poll. It seems that it's fun. At 65%, it's project management that the people want. It makes sense. Project management tool, PSA. So this is where we want to focus. Opportunity, 62% are using it, but I'm surprised 20% of you guys are using Salesforce CPQ. 14% client proposal. So I'm impressed by CPQ number. I'm glad about the proposal number. Some want to use it as well, and the pace for last week, it was okay, so it seems 65% as well, around 60. So it's better for my art. I just slow down a little bit.
It's it's because we have good customers that catch quickly, so that's why.
Exactly. It's exactly why. No, I don't have any further question. I'm still trying to figure out those Zoom control. I want to post question and answer. So you guys, one of the thing was, I think on the resource planner, I wanted to know if you guys were using it a lot. I do see a big potential improvement in terms of intelligence that we can provide on that planner. So there is a question and answer on a section as well in Zoom. So if you want to use it, there's a chat, but you can also use the question and answer. But here there is some just easy subtraction that could be made, and color coding as well. That could be a different pattern for another section at the bottom. Maybe here also the schedule, holiday schedule could be something of interest. So again, at the end, the roadmap, we're talking about it. We're going to define what we want to implement, but it's quite often based on what you guys are using.
One thing I forgot to mention here, which is very interesting, based on and it's useful at different places. I think it works. Coming back to it and mentioning it, is that at bottom here, the concept of placeholder and roles here, we have what's called the net availability. So this is to manage your pipeline, to manage and make sure that what you have may be coming up, and that you may have already made some promises on. What here it kind of shows everything that is not yet assigned. So total number of hours that are related to an engagement lead eventually, this is what it gives you here. So we still have some hours that are not assigned, that are pending, that are in the pipeline, that eventually would, if everything is won, would need to be assigned here. So that's something that you need to keep track on, so that you don't overpromise, or you staff further for the job that is upcoming. And the other thing also is that if you have projects in the pipeline, once in a while you'll need to make sure that you maintain it. There's data. The data helps us getting better decision, better information, but that eventually needs to be maintained there.
Next question.
Yes.
I wish the color code applied according to target utilization for scheduled view.
Yeah, in this case, this is based on.
I want to put you on the spot, but we can take this one.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, it's similar is what we have here. Now it's flipped to the global, kind of taking a few step backs. But we have here a percentage range, and so the colors are based on a percentage range, and it is based on the target utilization percentage. So if you're using a person to 100, you call it to 75% of their work week, that means that they would be there for 30 hours a week. If they're booked for a total of 30 hours, then they would be marked as 100%, and the color code would be according to that. We can deep dive in it, and when we get to planning and scheduling, and more in the project execution, but it's based on the target utilization percentage. Be nice to have more flexibility, though. I agree. As a user, I'd like to have a bit more flexibility, but that's a nice improvement that could have also eventually.
We have Michael on the line, our product manager, so she's taking note. We have a question from Joshua in regards of how is a placeholder defined. So that's an easy one to.
Yeah, a placeholder basically is a resource, the same as you have actual resource, but it's marked as a placeholder. So a placeholder is, and let me just flip. I think I have a list here just for placeholders. So it's as easy as having a name. I do personally. That's, you see that I've set up the system. I do have that habit of having that naming convention of a P in between parentheses, so I can quickly identify it as a placeholder. But it's basically just a resource that is flagged as placeholder. That's all there is to it. And then there's further information that you could have. We could even link to other stuff, but we would have the minimum you need to have so that it makes sense is one checked as placeholder and a work schedule so that you know how many hours this one's working hard, 12 hours a week. And you have that, target utilization that you can even set for placeholders. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so if I get back into my track or the story, so basically we were, and we've validated our price, at least we scoped it as a first proposal, and we validated that we had the resource. So eventually back to the opportunity, we would complete, and what we see here is that, now I'm back here, sorry, on the opportunity, that console view is very useful to flip back quickly from records to record, but it might be confusing on the other end. So I'm back here on the opportunity that launched everything. Recall where I did hit new, and now I have that opportunity that popped in. So that information, I might have received as a sales executive, I might have, or account executive might have received a chatter, or even if I just keep going back to my opportunity, now I've seen that appear. I have my price. I've even, some information that we can flag or decide what we want to show. But I even have the margin here because I have the cost on my project, and now I'm showing the actual margin that I can expect on this project and the status here. So now it's submitted. I would have seen draft prior to that. No, I could establish a common language in the company and say, okay, whenever it's submitted or whatever status, then it's good to go. You can take it and run with it. So back on the opportunity, we build our SWU, would work the customer, and eventually we would have it close one because we win about all the opportunity that we're doing. So that
It's
there's
a
a
new
lot of
sales
things.
guy talking, huh? You're new in your role, huh?
Yeah, it's still naive. So that we obviously we could have, that's kind of the custom, and then it's Drake talking here. We can have custom integrations where, based on triggers, based on, let's say, close one here, there's a few things in the background that it can occur. It could flip your project to in progress. It could send an email to say to operations manager this and that. This is ready to launch. Please staff it and run the project. So there's uh, and it's rather easy, surprisingly, with a Salesforce platform that we have flows, process builders. This is all declarative, so it's you don't need to have some super geek developer guy to do it. There's a lot that can be done just with graphical development, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I think that the part that's missing just here, and maybe I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry, Dominic. The products. Usually, what's
Oh,
gonna happen is that from the proposal, if you go back, just open up P57. That proposal has some lines, right? So those lines, there's two way to look at things. So if you guys, there's two type of businesses as well, mainly in our customer or focus. There's pure consulting firms, so that doing a consulting business as Drakia, that just charging hours to their customer, whatever milestone, fixed fee or time and expense, but consulting firms. Or we have SaaS businesses. So as client does a software, but does have also people that might do some implementation. So then you go in. So usually the difference here is that when you're a SaaS business, you're going to work with the opportunity and you're going to add product to the opportunity, and it's going to be software SKUs. So software product, let's say you are in a higher education, you might have a modules for grading and other modules for when you're giving cash, how is it called? Des dons en anglais.
pro bono.
Yeah, when you're
Oh, donation.
donation. Yeah. So a donation. So those queues you're gonna have. So if you go back to the proposal then and you
Sorry.
do add product, I'm not sure if we have any configure here. So I'm sorry, the proposal, the opportunity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we could do it here as well, but I think the use case and for a SaaS business is more from here. If you do add product here, you're gonna have your standard. So your standard Salesforce product, yeah, maybe
I
we're
don't
not
have any
configured,
in this case
but
here.
the idea is you would add those product, and from there it would trigger when it's close one or at a certain stage. Usually it's before close one, so you can start forecasting. It's going to trigger the creation of a project based on one or multiple template, depending on the number of product that you added. So this is usually the SaaS business. That's why SaaS business, they don't use as much proposal, or the way they would use it is when it come back, it's gonna the statement of work can come back as a one liner at the bottom for hours spent on the services. When you're a consulting firm, on the other way, usually you do what Dominic did since the beginning. You would start with a proposal, you would play around with your project, as add hours, modify the hours, and then bring those back in. And now, Dom, if you can switch back to the proposal. And from here, we don't have anything out of the box yet, but you see there's a sync opportunity button. This would be, again, something custom at this point, but it's one of the improvement I'm suggesting, is that from here, all those lines that we have here could go back directly to the opportunity as opportunity product line. This way you have them in sync, and this way it's easier for the sales guy to go in and generate a statement of work, because that the other part also is here. The PDF would be either on the proposal object or on the opportunity object. This would be a business decision where you want the document to be generated. Is it more the service team that should generate the document? Then the generation of document should be here on the proposal. If it's more the sales guy, then it should be on the opportunity. I'm not sure if I was clear. This is a kind of could be tricky.
I understood. But so to
Start.
start those webinars, we don't necessarily have that live feedback on
But,
um, look,
uh,
but
there's two questions though. I'm not sure. Are you following up with that chain of thought, or we're on another subject? Because
I
there's
was
bill
just going
rate
to say
question.
that, yeah, just to wrap up there, because I was saying that there's stuff that could happen when we close one. And obviously we could think of several product and only one there triggers a project. So that, these, all those logics of that we could have that automate in the background and say, you sell so many products and you have one product that is implementation. Then we could, even if you didn't do the proposal in the project front, you could say, this is triggering a template project automatically. And as I said, sending an email to the operation manager and say, we've sold this. Then you have new hours to do an implementation. So based on product, we can trigger very interesting stuff there.
One question, and I think we've had the same discussion with somebody through support last week, I believe. Is there a way to have different bill rates for the same resource over multiple financial years? I don't recall if you had that discussion with the team, but with the idea is with different rate, the same rate card, but creating new line item in the rate card for each year. And this way you can start even planning with the new rate in the future. So you would have Dominic Brunel or Yannick Abraham as an engagement lead with a 2020 next to it in the name of the, maybe Dominic, you can go in a rate card. And I could also have a Yannick Abraham with 2021. I think that's the Alex, if you want to comment, I think you're on the webinar. I think that's a solution that we proposed to one of our customer. Yes, we could keep track a little bit better, I would think, in terms of dates and cutover and being able to track a bit better the margin. But as an out of the box solution, uh, yeah, Alex, again, maybe you need to confirm. I think this is a good solution to work with.
Yeah, because it's kind of a bit mix because there's the rate cards which is fixed over time. We can flip a rate card at some point and kind of we lock by approvals all the timesheet and what's in the past, and then we update with a new rate card and then enroll with change. So that's one thing, but it's not as dynamic as you're saying, and then foreseeing and forecasting those rates. And it's a mix also on the project. We do have an object called assignment rates. So when you go to an actual projects, you can set a certain date where an assignment would eventually change. So that's kind of a mix here in between a certain date where that rate would change and the rate card. So it's I think it's valid. It's a question that we get often from customer, so it'd be a nice improvement so that we can
So
build
there's
that
two
into the
things.
rate
There's
cards.
really creating a new rate card, but this implies that at some you set up a day,
Mhm, mhm.
everything needs to be approved, no new hours need to be logged, and then you switch the rate card, and then everybody is on the new one this way. But you cannot plan in advance for the
Yep,
new rate
yep.
card. So meaning that the other solution would be to create a new line, and this way you can plan for the future. It might get longer. We have some automation at some point that we can provide our people just to clone rate card. That's a low hanging fruit as well. There's no clone rate card, so when you have a lot of roles to cloning a rate card, it's very long. So there's one of that functionality at some point we can bring in. I see that you guys are interacting on the question and answer section. I like it. So perfect. So let's move on, Dominic.
So yeah, and so based on, if I just get back, maybe the just the closing steps, 15 minutes there, we'll leave further questions. But the last step, once we've won that opportunity, uh, so that back on the other thing that is possible also from the proposal is to actually, and it often comes back, how do we actually give the go to or the okay or the officialize the information to the operations team so that they know what was sold and what was not. So that's kind of through the contract and the contract line that we can do that from. So from that opportunity, then we can create the contract, so that it's going to generate basically more contract lines that will be applied against your project, and that's going to provide the information to the project team. So if I'm here, I'm on the proposal, I've hit contract, create contract, and if I was to go on my project, now I can look into my related list of contract lines, and I see those information here that were brought over. So my time there is showing. And so it's kind of make it official for the team, so that say, okay, I have it in 151 hours, so it kind of locks it in. So if ever they have to change the Gantt, add new task, and further estimate the project, they still have that reference back and say, okay, this is what was sold initially. Either we have to have an agreement for change requests and further scope in the project, or depending on the agreement with the customer, but at least we have something that kind of set the baseline there of what's the budget. So that's quite interesting. That was sent from the proposal, so we kind of closed the loop, starting from proposal, getting a project, finalizing with the opportunity, back to proposal, and pushing the budget to the project itself. So it's about kind of the whole loop. Maybe the other thing, if we don't have other questions at this point, I could close
There's
out on.
one. There's
Oh,
one left before. Keep your idea in mind.
yeah.
Can you filter the resource planner to show only those that are available, rather than the old list of resource? I'm not sure.
So that No,
I don't think so.
no, I don't think so. And it's where I was going. Here I'm in the global planner, but and there's no filtering for that specifically. There's a whole set of filters, obviously, we can use. Now, see, this one here is set by default to pipeline in my case. I'm probably more into sales, and what I want to see is just keep an eye on the pipeline projects that I have. So I filtered on that, but not specifically on the just the hours, the one that are the color code is there for that. And there's other consideration also, because they might be in the pipeline project, they might be in the soft booking, so there's different levels of information that we still eventually need to consider. um, but yeah, no, the options are filtering out is not necessarily there.
Can you automate creating contract from proposal on close one? Definitely, there's things that we can do custom, but Dominic.
Yes, and did that with I don't know if he's on the call, but did with a customer in England just recently, which is it was a very nice implementation. The customer was uh, very progressive on its way of doing it. So when we close opportunity, close one, it looks for a proposal that is client accepted, and then if there's any contract hours there, it creates automatically the hours, feeds into the project. But that's kind of cherry on top. We kind of build a bit of the automation, which is again not that complicated to build. Just need to lock in the process that you want, but put the logic on paper, and then we can build it. Um,
And
But
that's
yeah,
why.
there's barely no limit to your imagination. It's just a matter of time after.
And in that regards, we need to be careful on the client side of thing because client usually doesn't have self cloud, so the opportunity is an object that we don't always have. It's always there on the platform, but we don't have access to it. So uh, quite often you're gonna need to create custom stuff, or like Drakia, they have done it several times, so they already have templates of things that can happen between. So, but yeah, definitely can work with all the objects related and create things under the hood. Maybe also there's something that maybe people don't know for when you're doing flows or code, but there's an API to clone project. So you can in a flow you can call. I'm guessing we can see that further down the line, but in a flow. You can call the API and then there's parameter to pass. So you can, with an existing project, it can create a new project. You can define which template to load and then it's going to create all of it. So for those of you guys that are Salesforce admin and want to create project automatically based on the opportunity stage, you can use that Apex class within a flow.
Yeah, rather easy to use either in the flow or even in a process builder. If you want to keep it very simple, often I prefer the flow because you have a lot more flexibility.
And if I'm not
Um,
mistaken, Process Builder, when you look under the hood, it's a flow. And if I'm not mistaken, they're putting Salesforce is putting a lot more emphasis on flow and less on Process Builder, or maybe an hybrid. But yeah, flow is
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Trying to go away from a process builder, I think.
This is definitely. I don't know if we're gonna cover it in our success series, but that's a definitely a performance tool to learn if you're a Salesforce admin. Okay, what were you any since we're I think we've done the
The whole
round. I
loop.
think
Yep.
you have
Yep.
more stuff to show, but is there any question that you guys want to answer? Do you like the concept so far? I wish I had created that poll before, but yeah, let us know. I'm looking at the chat windows if you have any question at this one. Dominic, do you want
No,
to?
that's yeah. I'm kind of I went around everything. The last point here, why I loaded that is that eventually, as I said, at one point, if you use the pipeline project, and it's just a matter also of looking into those different pipelines and see where they're at, and maybe use that also to kind of follow up and track with your customers. So two ways of doing it would be using the global resource planner, where you could have a track, and this is where I filtered for just a few resource and the status of the pipeline. And the upper right corner here, a nice useful button here that you like. If you tend to get always the same type of filter, just come and save that. So next time you load it, it's going to be exactly those filters that are loaded. With the right view also. So if you're used to go to schedule or plan or whatever, then you can save that and having it showed into by project, then you see, what's the load and what are the hours here. So that's one thing that is interesting. The other thing that is also very useful, and thanks Ralph, I've kind of brought that back to my mind this morning into one of the demos. So that's just a late update just of something that I had on my list. But when you're into the client object or crew object, it might be called in your system, same thing. Here's the record, the Salesforce record list. You have a button, it's called View All Project Gantt. Maybe it's not there, but it's something that can out of the box be there, just a matter of configuring it. But then what it gives you access to is a list of all the Gantts. In the visual, in read-only mode, you cannot modify that right from here, but at least it gives you a big picture. And again, here we have a series of filters, and let's say I want to go and filter by pipeline projects, then what I'm going to get is all the project that, as with my account, I have visibility on. So it really depends on the security that you have, but this is going to show me all projects. And the one I just did, can even expand it and see the different tasks. So that's kind of a just quick glance of all the projects there in there. And as account executive, eventually you might say, okay, this one, it was supposed to start now. What happened there? And then kind of triggers back some other, stuff that, okay, I'm going to call back the customer and see where it's at. So this is another tool that you can leverage to prevent dropping any projects.
Yeah, I love that, and there's a ton of things we can do with that too to yeah, to create more visibility for sure. and functionality. There's one thing I can show about Flow Builder quite rapidly. Otherwise, there was a question: can you export the statement of work or proposal as a PDF? If so, can you show an example? Not out of the box. At this point, it would require you to use something like Conga or WebMerge form stack to generate it. Moving forward, I was thinking of doing something, but statement of work are so personal and usually there's a lot of branding involved. So most probably using a document generation tool based on Word document might be a better option for you guys. So if you do use Conga Composer, we're going to improve. I'm hoping for Q1, we're going to have improvement on the proposal object and proposal line, which is going to have a lot more information you can stack on them. So it's going to be easier for you to generate your statement of work. Will there be a bottom line and schedule view of Resource Planner like there is for net availability? This one, Dominic, I'm not sure.
Not sure. I understand if we're saying like a baseline or a bottom line.
Maybe read the question and perhaps the person who asked for it can precise the thought. And during that time, I'm gonna share my screen just for a second. Should see it
Will there be
now.
a bottom line and schedule view of
You
Resource
Dominic,
Planner?
can you
Like,
see my my
yes,
screen? Do you see
yes,
flows?
yes.
Okay. So from here, really quickly, okay, so those are flows. And you can see here for the client side, this is the flow I've built. As soon as we have a new customer, or this one, I think it's a new support case, and there's a new customer account linked to the support case. I want to create a new support project. So you guys, when you're calling in to client and you want to talk to Alex or anybody else from the support team, and you didn't have an account for a project for us to keep track of when you're contacting us, that's the flow that's going to create that project. So when there's a new update, I'm going to create a project, and then this is the Apex class that I'm going to pass the account ID for the project. I'm going to pass the owner and the template ID. This could have been more dynamic, but for now, there was no point of being more dynamic in my flow. But with this, every time somebody calls in and didn't have a support project, it's going to create it. And then the next automation will be to create automatically by the tasks are going to be there, but a task linked to the case. So this way we can easily log time to it. But those flows are great. And again, maybe we can do a separate session just to talk about that. Back to you, Dominic.
Thanks. So if I understand the question, and that might be just something that might be an enhanced request, and then probably just to precise it, but the question, as I understand it, and please, anonymous attendee, that's the name we have. If I'm not answering right, send me an email slap there and say this is not what I wanted to know, and then just get the explanation, and we'll see, or at least we'll send it to client. But the net availability here that we have per schedule um, per role, sorry, if we could have that in the schedule. So I guess if the question is that if we could have that into the resource planner, that's my take on this one, at least. But that's interesting. To me, it's a tool that I'm using more and more as a project planner, and especially now that I'm more on towards account management, so that we have a good visibility on the team, and so that we can forecast the project better, and have them in the pipeline as early as it makes sense. Honestly, it might be just that almost at the end, but using the planner kind of gets me that visibility, keeping the team healthily busy, let's say.
You've answered the question correctly, Dominic. We have a yes.
Thanks.
And we're running out of time. We're at the end of this webinar. Next week, it's going to be a showcase between some of the way that you guys have implemented. I'm still talking to a couple of customers. The idea is I want to show some custom implementation on how you can work with proposal and opportunity. And we're going to look deeper a little bit into statement of work and document generation next week. So thank you, Dominic. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's been a pleasure.
That was
Hope
nice.
you liked it. We'll see you next week.
Bye.